Welcome everybody back to another episode of Stripped Raw. I'm Cam. Today I'm here with Brandon. We go good.
Hello, Cam.
Go,
How you
BT,
doing?
Terminator, all the nicknames. um, yeah.
Yeah, whatever you want to call me.
You know, I have a lot of nicknames from you. I think I usually just stick to Brandon though.
Yeah. I don't know how many I have for you. It changes on a daily basis.
Today we're doing I think the final installment of the 10 commandments. So I feel pretty learned up at this point on everybody else's, but I am excited for yours. You know, can make the joke here, it plays the joke, but the most experience in life, I'd say, and definitely have had some unique experiences that I don't know, you definitely worked through in a better way. You're one of the people in the group or even at work that I see handle things that would definitely fire me or other people up, and you know, put a smile on your face and you get through it, get it done, and move on.
Yeah, sometimes that smile outward is not what's going on inward, but yeah.
Oh yeah.
Life experiences.
So, we'll jump right into it. I have your list here, but I'll let you read them off. And I think have you numbered yours in importance, or is it just the first one and then the rest are? Okay.
The first one, yeah. The first one is the most important, and then after that, there's no real order to it other than organization, right. I guess. Yeah. So great. When you came up with this idea, I thought, man, that is so awesome. And then to hear the other guys, what they had to say, I know them so well. So I kind of had an idea of what they would say, even Fred. People always are surprised a lot of people are surprised what Fred has to say and his different look on life. And yeah, sometimes you're like taken back by it. And then others, you're just like, well, that's just Fred. Man, you got to love the guy because he always sticks with what is his. And also what I've known and noticed about him and about me and about a lot of the other folks is all of these things change with time. Some stay the same, but many of them will change depending on your stage in life and where you're at, what you're going through, what you've been through, and what's to come. So in 10 years, these commandments that we have may be the same, may be similar, or some of them may change. And I think a lot of mine have changed throughout my time and life experiences. As you said, I've had a lot of experience as you went in order of age, youngest to oldest. And now I'm honored to be the oldest and last one.
Yeah. With Fred,
there we have
that's one thing that I definitely mentioned in his episode too, is he's so authentically Fred that the things he does might be a surprise in the instance, but you go, oh, that's Fred. Like that adds up.
Yeah. But yeah, so I'll get to my first one, and this one has been with me for quite some time, and probably my whole life. And sometimes it fades when it shouldn't, and I should continue to follow it. But the number one for me, and before I get to that, and I know this is like for us, it's for men, 10 Commandments of being a man, and I don't know if this is particularly just for men, but I think anybody, for me, I don't think it's just for one man, for all men. It can be for women as well, in my opinion. So I'll give you the first one, and that's follow Jesus. For me, that's the biggest one. For following Jesus, and very difficult to do what you're supposed to do. And not always am I a good follower. Very often, probably not. But at least that's my guidepost, where to go. And I'm only here because of Jesus. So that's my first one. And the what I thought is Matthew 5 through 7 is the Sermon on the Mount. For me, that's incredible message and great guidance. And any time I read it, it's like I've read it for the first time. And I don't know how many times I've read it. But yeah, that's the thing that guides me the most. To me, that's one of the best messages in the Bible as to where to go. So that's where I'm at with that.
Yeah, and
That's
that
my number one.
I think probably one of the best number ones, or whenever I ask them to order them, because that is a very good blanket for, like, or foundation is a better word. It's a very good foundation for everything else to be built off of. And um, and you talk spiritually or bring that a little bit more into it, like Cobra and I did. It His was more like a circle than a list, and we went through that whole thing where if one thing falls apart, then you can't really work on the rest. And I think that is very true with this one, is if that is what you're following and that falls apart, then anything else behind it is gonna suffer for sure.
Yeah, and when you get to that and you talk about the Cobra, uh, and all of the guys that I've known for so long and saw the different times, hard times, good times, growth, and to see Cobra, his man, he completely just went with it. Like, all right, God, you got me. I'm going to follow whatever you say. And man, to see what he did, it was just
Mm-hmm.
it was just inspiring.
Yep. Yeah, we can go to the second one.
Okay, for me, this second one, and no particular order, of course, but forgiveness. And this is something that I have learned little by little, and now it's one of, like, man, this is truly where you can get some peace, and that's forgiveness. Uh, to me, if you can figure out forgiveness, you'll feel a lot better about yourself. And not always it is forgiving the person. You're not forgiving the person for their sake, but for your sake. It has an even bigger impact in, because some people don't even know, that
Mm-hmm.
you are forgiving them, and they don't care. But it might be eating you up inside, carrying the grudge
Yeah,
for them, and they don't even
yeah. That one
know
is
about it. So,
I think one of the more difficult ones as well. That it's easy to say on paper, but in practice, it's when it gets hard. But one thing I've always admired my dad growing up, and he still does it now, is he doesn't even get to the forgiveness step. If something's done to him around, or something you think he won't like, it's just he has some kind of shield where he's just doesn't realize it. He doesn't care about it. He doesn't process it. So, like, my mom and I, growing up with different things or whatever, and it's funny from his perspective, because he's like, I don't even understand why you're thinking about that. It doesn't matter. So he doesn't even get to the forgiveness step, and that's something I've always tried to obtain, but it's hard to tell yourself to do it. You know.
oh, indeed. Well, he's got it figured out then, if you can get that. And it does to me, for myself, it's come with my age. And like you're saying, some of the things that used to bother me when I was younger, it's you don't even think about it. So maybe that's what
Mm-hmm.
has gotten him where he's at with that. But then there's other times, and it seems more often than, somebody cuts you off, especially out here, DC traffic, how crazy that is. And you get upset a little bit. And I used to get upset. I hardly ever do I get upset now. Uh, so I don't know if that's growth or just
Yeah.
like, hey, this is going to happen, accept it, roll with it. But for me, I think, and it's harder when someone you love hurts you. Sometimes that's
Yeah.
harder to forgive. Yeah. But then sometimes it is someone you love and it's easier to
Yeah.
forgive. It can go both ways. How hurt you are, you know, and a lot of times loved ones don't mean to hurt you, but oftentimes
Mm-hmm.
that was the intention. Like, okay, I'm feeling this way. You hurt me. I'm going to hurt you back. Uh, you know, uh, silly stuff that we shouldn't do, but sometimes our human nature just, uh, man, they said something to me like
Yep.
that. I'm going to say something that will hurt them. And yeah, before you say that back,
Yep.
just think, hey,
And
forgiveness,
forgiveness is
you
one of
know?
the characteristics, if not the hardest one, maybe, I don't know, to do on autopilot. At least in my short experience, is that you can practice this, and most things you practice and it becomes second nature. But it is just so easy to become the kid in the sandbox and throw sand back at somebody. That's the easy way out.
Yes.
And I don't think that forgiveness, at least for me, is something that I practice subconsciously. It's something I have to keep on my mind. And, you know, how important is this to me? Is it worth saying something, retaliating, whatever it may be? And usually it isn't. But had I not thought about that, it's very easy to just shoot back.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. So, have I got it figured out? Not even close. But I am aware of it, and I do know this, man. And I've learned a great deal from my dad. So one of the, and this would be an example of it. So 20 years ago, I quit drinking. Before that, I was a drunk. I drank so much, I had a bad problem with alcohol. And I remember years ago, this was, I don't even know, probably 25 years ago. And my dad, he had a birthday party. And I was at home, which rarely I was after I, grew up, left the house. I just happened to be home at the time of his birthday party. And his birthday party was in the evening. And on that particular day, I went with some buddies to go watch a football game at a sports bar. And I ended up drinking way too much,
Mm.
and I missed the birthday party, all because I was selfishly wanted to stay and keep drinking. Anyway, the next morning I was like, man, I feel terrible about this. And it was just like crushing to me because I love my dad and I know he loves me and he would have loved to have me at that party. Then I also thought about this, man, everybody knew I was home. And probably at the party, people were asking, well, where's Brandon? And then what would my dad say, So maybe he was embarrassed about it. Maybe he wasn't. I don't know. But when I apologized to him, I think it was the next day, I said, man, I'm sorry about that. He said, oh, that's all right. But it bothered me for a long time, even a few years later. And then when I did quit drinking, I was like, man, I really hurt a lot of people during the time that I was drinking. And I apologized to him. But that one really stuck with me. And so I said, Dad, remember when you had that birthday and I was at home, but I didn't come to it because I was drinking? He said, not really, no. I was like, oh, man. He said, are you thinking about that? He said, you can't think about that. Don't worry about it. Everything's good. Yeah. And so it
Mm.
was similar to what your dad does. There wasn't even
Yeah.
a reason to forgive. So, and that really hit me and it sticks with me and I don't feel bad about it anymore because I shouldn't. But I remember the
Well,
lesson
yeah,
just to remember
it's a
forgiveness.
healthy
So that
reminder.
helps with the forgiveness. Yeah.
That's
Yeah. Yeah. And you feel so much
yeah.
better when you forgive
And
someone,
yeah, especially
you
when
know.
that person or that thing isn't happening anymore. I've seen it time and time again in my friendships and relationships and everything where, um, the person will just stew on it. Meanwhile, the person who did it or caused it is out just living life and they're fine. And, the person will just be
Yeah.
fuming for days. It's like, man, you've just got to let go of that. And, it's easy to say, but that's an
Yeah.
interesting story. Yeah. Cause, much, much shorter time, but about a year and a half ago for me was roughly the same thing for drinking. It was a birthday brunch that I had actually shown up to, just, I think, still drunk or unwell. And nobody cared. My dad didn't care or anything, but same thing. I look back at it like, man, I just felt like a giant POS sitting at at brunch with my parents and their friends, and I'm like having to chug water and can barely hold down food. And you know,
Yeah.
that was just an
Yeah.
interesting tidbit because of roughly the same thing.
Yeah. And on that, and one of the hard things to do too for me has been to forgive myself almost as much, if not the same, or even harder sometimes to forgive yourself than,
Yeah.
to forgive someone else. I think sometimes it's harder to forgive yourself for your actions. It's like that thing, you have a conversation or something, and you say, "Man, I should have said this. I should have said that." As
Mm-hmm.
you're driving away and it's like, "Man, that would have really got him." But then sometimes I've been that where I'm driving away knowing,
Why did I say that?
hey,
Yeah.
I shouldn't have said that. But why did I say that? Because if I hadn't said it, I would be in the car saying, man, I should have said that. But then when you do say it, you're like,
Yeah.
man, I really shouldn't have said that. Man, because a lot of times that you say it, it's,
Mm.
I'm going to hurt this person because they said something that hurt me. This is my response. So, yeah. So even then, I think, man, I got to forgive myself for some of these
Yeah. And I
things
think,
that I say. As you know, at work, there's many instances
yeah. Yeah.
where these
Um,
come up.
well, I think, at least for me in my history on it, is when I regret things or, things that I've said or done, it's because embarrassment is also in the pot, is that you feel embarrassed that you got to that point or said
Yes.
that, or, if somebody else would have said that, you would have looked at them like, oh man, you really can't hold yourself, can you? And then you're out there doing it and it, um, so that, yeah, that
Yes.
sits with me a lot. I think a lot about things that I've said. I think about things I've said or done when I was like 10 years old, and I'm still very embarrassed by them, but it's a good lesson nonetheless.
Yeah. Yeah. Just remember them, but don't beat yourself up, and that's part of it. Hey, forgive
Yeah.
yourself, and then move on. And hopefully, it'll go to one of those like, oh, okay, yeah, lesson learned, and stuff like that. And I talked to some of my friends that think back to 20, 30 years ago, and they're like, man, I really didn't treat my parents well. I didn't treat others well at this time. I think, man, you can't let that eat you up. You're thinking about it 20, 30 years after it happened. You got to let it go. And that's where the forgiving yourself comes in. Because probably the people that he felt or people think they uh, wronged, they haven't thought about it
Mm-hmm.
maybe even 5 minutes after it happened. Yeah. So that's yeah. Forgiveness is huge. Forgiving
Yeah,
yourself, forgiving
I
others.
like that one. I don't believe, maybe I'm misremembering. I don't believe anybody's thrown that one or that general thing out there, and I like that one a lot because it's definitely a something I've struggled with, which I think most people have, and something that I still try my best to practice.
Yeah.
But you know,
Yeah. And I think Fred is one of those who I think kind of uh, just lets it
yeah,
bounce off him a little bit.
yeah,
Sometimes. Yeah. And then other times not. But yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that was my number two.
Oh yeah,
Are you ready for three? Or should we continue on? Okay. For three, I have take care of yourself, love yourself. To me, this is a necessity. If you're not loving yourself, you're not taking care of yourself. And if you can't take care of yourself, you can't take care of others. So, and that's part of three. And then I have a little subheading for three is to be kind. Be kind to yourself, reward yourself, be as kind to yourself as you are to those who you love the most. So, with that, I think most of the people that we have in our group are kind with one another, especially if someone's going through a problem, uh, and you're kind to your loved ones. But are you as kind to yourself as you are to your loved ones? I don't know. What do you think,
I
Cam?
think most people not. I mean, you can use the example of forgiveness, like we just told. Whether it's harder to forgive yourself or easier, but
Hmm.
I think a lot of people don't think about it. To me, as soon as you said that, it brought up the classic. If you're getting in a relationship, or you're wanting to give yourself to somebody, if you're not 100% and know yourself and understand and love yourself and all these other things, then you're you're handing someone a broken piece of equipment. You know, um,
Hmm.
I think it's underlooked and underappreciated. I think it's very important.
Yeah. And I think it's easy for us to do, because when you get into that relationship where you really, at the early stages, you want to be kind, and you might not genuinely be your true self at that time because you're really trying to make it work, impress, if that's the right word. And then once you finally really get to know the person and know that you love that person, you may want to do everything you can uh, for that person. But would you do
Mm.
the same thing for yourself? So I don't know, taking if you're not loving yourself the same as you're loving your partner, uh,
Yeah,
that's where I think it gets
and
difficult.
I mean, I have a direct experience in this on kind of the flip side. But if you then lean on somebody to give you love, to because you're not capable of giving it yourself, and then one day they're not there. In my experience, I went off to the military and was gone for 6 months. Um, that person will fall apart if you're their crutch, or you need someone as your crutch, and then one day they're not there for whatever the reason may be. Is you've just limped your way to this point. Now what? You know, it's you've made it harder on yourself at this point.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, it's and then like I always say, I like where you say be kind to yourself, or reward yourself. I've said it time and time again, and I might get it on my own T-shirt at this point, but I tell all my friends who struggle with this concept is count your wins. It's like everybody, even the people who work on themselves know how to count their faults and examine them and fix them and all these other things. But if you never count your wins, if you never reward yourself, then what was the work for? You know?
Yeah, good point.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I
Yeah,
like that one.
oh, for sure. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, and well, on that, what you were saying, and when that person's not there, and if you go with the attitude, oh man, how am I going to make it without that person now? Like, oh well, you shouldn't have
I
been with that
completely
person
agree.
in the first place. Because yeah, if and many and through the experience in my lifetime and many friends that have been married and then divorced, or some of my friends just can't be without another person, and it's like, oh man. But and Dave would be a good example of this, of watching him go through everything he went through 6 years ago, I think. And right when his wife left, it was like he couldn't be alone with himself. And when he was
Mm-hmm.
destroying himself in a sense. Uh, and so watching that, and was like, man, this guy. And I say, hey, Dave, you got to take care of yourself. You got to do this. You should do this. Try to be alone. And he had to fill stuff up that he thought was empty. And then a little bit later on, then he said, all right, that's it. I'm going to be alone with myself and figure myself out. And
Yeah.
man, it was awesome to see. And similar to Cobra too, when he filled himself up, followed God, and
Yep.
say, what do you got for me? But yeah, Dave figured out a lot of stuff on his own, and now as you see him, like,
Yeah.
oh, and then the relationship came along, he was completely ready. because he could function and be
Thrive.
happy
Yeah.
himself. Yeah, thrive without,
Yep.
another girlfriend
And
or,
I mean,
yeah.
I've felt the
So,
direct result of him having to deal with that and put that in because, um, early on when before we started this stuff, when I was still kind of figuring my stuff out, I remember I called him. I was going through something. I called him, and he didn't say much. And then he all he asked me was, "How well do you think you know yourself? Like, how comfortable are you with yourself?" And I thought for a second,
yeah.
and I gave him what I thought was a genuine answer. Was like, I'd say he said put it in percentage. I said probably 60%. Like, I can't watch TV because I don't like sitting by myself. I have to be texting, playing games with people, whatever. At that point, um, and that was
Hmm.
like, I didn't know that he actually, I didn't know that he struggled with that, or that was a point of his life. And yeah, man, all he had to do was ask me that question. I started putting it in practice, and I mean, you know, I started doing things like forcing myself to go shopping alone with headphones in, and that was really weird, and I hated it. But
Yeah.
um, the direct result of that, and then putting it in practice, and then not putting myself in a situation until I knew that I was comfortable with myself and capable. Um, yeah, that's interesting. I didn't know that he that was a direct experience that he had that he passed down on me.
Oh, yeah. 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 That's awesome. Yeah. And that's the thing we should do. And what our group is good at doing is, sharing our knowledge,
Yeah.
experiences we've been through, and all of that. Yeah. So on to 4. I have for this one. It's okay to get down. Just don't stay there. Embrace the hard times. You'll get stronger with each trial you go through. And with that, ask for help. One of the bravest things you can do is ask for help. If you're asking for help, you aren't giving up. So that's
Yep.
number 4, but no particular order. And I've learned this throughout my life, and I've known this a long time, that, hey, if you get down, that's all right. It's rough being down. It depends how far down you are. And if you're really down, that's when you really need to ask for help. And I know that for myself, it's been a long time though since I've been down, but the last time I was down, it's like, man, this is brutal. But I did know that I was going to get through it, and it was just a matter of time. And I also
Mm.
knew I had to do something about it. I couldn't just sit there and wallow in it. It's like, man, all right, I'm down. What do I need to do? First thing I did, and also when I was down, this is what's so awesome too. I have so many people that love me and know me just by talking to me on the phone or seeing me. They knew, oh, something's wrong. I remember I flew home. I have this brother-in-law, Simon, and he used to be a counselor at school for quite some time. And as soon as I got off the plane, they were all waiting for me. And he kind of pulled me to the side and said, "What's going on?" And I was so down, I was like, "Ooh, man," I said, "I can't even talk about it right now." I said, "But I will." It's
Mm-hmm.
like, okay. And he noticed right there. So it's great that people notice that. But I knew, hey, I got to do something about this. And one was to go home, see the family, talk to them. The other, I went and saw my doctor, and I've been lucky enough to have the same doctor for 20 years. And she knew, oh man, you're messed up. Uh, go talk to somebody, and then she would check in with me. I think I went every 2 weeks to see her to see how I was doing until she said, "Okay, I think you're all right." But yeah, that's so I knew I needed to do stuff, and then I followed a lot of what my friends said. I knew a lot what I needed to do just from being in down in the past, and hey, get out of this. And a few months later, I started going up, 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 up,
Yeah.
and then man, I was good. So yeah. So I did learn that from experience. Hey, and I said it's okay. And everybody said, "Hey, it's okay. You're down." You know, and also when you are in that situation, a lot of times you don't want to talk to people. So, and I think that is another commandment I have, but we'll get to that here shortly.
Um,
But yeah, your
yeah,
thoughts.
and this, I think an important step in this is, people realize that they're sad or angry at something or whatever it may be, but there's a separation there, at least there has been for me, with realizing you're down, right? And it's like, okay, I'm in this state. I either need to do something or I need help. Um, and then, like you said, asking for help
Mm-hmm.
is, I think the stigma is finally breaking of guys need to just deal with it, which is very nice. I in the last few months had something happen, and uh, honestly, the very first thing I did was, after leaving work, was I called Dave and couldn't get the first word out before I started just losing it and bawling. And that would have
Yeah.
never crossed my mind before. And then I immediately, after the drive, settled down, drove, and I just drove straight to my parents' house. And it's like, all right, Dad, this is what's happening. Um, and yeah, I never would have been able or even thought to do that prior, but it it immediately diffused the situation and gave me a perspective on it of someone who wasn't in it and blind by these things. I was just tunnel visioned on things. Um, there's so much benefit to it, and it all starts with realizing, like, okay, I'm not just angry, I'm not just this. It's like I'm sad, or I'm going through this thing, and even if it's just I just need to tell somebody about it, or I need help. First person I called was Dave. Was like, all right, Dave, you've you've been my guy. You have the answers. Hook me up, please.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Yeah.
like I said, I think it all starts with just realizing where you're at.
Yeah. Because if you don't, man, you're sitting amongst yourself, and it's just eating you up inside. What are you going to do
Yeah.
if you don't talk to somebody?
Yep.
You know, yeah, great benefit to
Yeah.
the group
And
we have.
I hope it's an example. I still have friends and still have people very close to me who aren't capable of, or don't want to. I won't say anybody's not capable, but they don't want to reach out or look like that or look a certain way. And it's like, man, the fact, I always tell them, it gets to the point where it's a joke. I was like, you don't want to look weak, but the fact that you can't say words about your feelings is crazy.
Yeah, and that's
Exactly.
to
That's
me
what, yeah.
that's even weaker.
Yeah.
You know.
Um,
Yeah.
but it takes practice. It takes getting uncomfortable. You don't find progress in your comfort
Yeah.
zone in any aspect of life.
I like that. Yeah. Very nice. Yeah. So we got that. I guess five, and this kind of tails on that too. Is sometimes you need to talk about the things you don't want to talk about. And like you were saying, and to me, tears are a strength, not a weakness. Tears are working something
Mm-hmm.
out that needs to get out. And so like your example, talking to Dave and just letting it go, there was something inside you needed to get out, and some of that stuff that's leaving
Yep.
comes out through the tears. Yeah, to me.
No, yeah, I
I don't know
completely
what your
agree.
thoughts are on that.
There's some aspects of it that I don't quite understand, because I'm not I wouldn't classify myself as like a big crier, but not in like I'm a guy way, but just in general. Um, but when it needs to, so like for instance, I was, having those conversations, is at work, and the whole time I'm at work, I'm just got a ball in my throat, like, man, I just not here, not in front of, I don't
Yeah,
need the whole shop in on this right now. I just want to bite it down. I did it for a few hours, and it was finally like, God, I need to get in my truck. And as soon as my ass touched the seat
yeah,
in my truck, it was done. And it does help. It was,
yeah,
X amount of minutes of letting it out and trying to mumble through a crying voice and all that. And then, after however long that passed through, you feel better. You're able to rationalize and think about things differently. And no, I completely agree with it.
yeah. And
Oh,
relieving a little
massively.
tension
Yeah.
as well. Holding it
It
back
hurts
is tough
physically.
to do sometimes. It hurts. Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Hurts physically and mentally. Yeah, yeah. And there's all kinds of tears too. The joyful tears as
No.
well. There's nothing wrong with that. And that's it too. To go back to Dave's growth, I remember when all of his bad stuff started happening to him, and he was 30, 30 something, I suppose 32, 33, whatever it was. And he was of the thought that men don't cry at that time. And I remember going over to his house and saying, "Man, you have got to let this shit out, bro. You got to let it out." And then uh, he said, "Man, I don't know what to do. I don't know." I said, "Well, you're going to get through it. We just got to figure out how." And I said, "A time will take the time that it will take, but you can't keep holding all this stuff in." And then, boom, he just let it out. And man, it was so good for me
Yeah.
to see, because I was like, finally, he's letting some of this out instead of just anger, which was the majority of his emotions at that time. Anger and
Mm-hmm.
sadness without tears. But yeah, once he let that out, and now he'll say, "Hey, men can cry." And I think Fred talked about it on his cast, talked about, yeah, and he always goes to Real Steel, the movie Real Steel, where at
Yeah.
the end, little tears. Yeah, sure. Yeah. But me, as I get older too, I'm more apt to cry anyways at say a movie like Real Steel or something else like that.
Yeah.
And I'm not
Yeah. No.
ashamed
I
of
will
that.
say, for a
So,
side note, I think the only
yeah.
movie that's ever really gotten me was Marley and Me. That was a rough one. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, any of the ones with dogs and where they meet
Mm-hmm.
their end in the movie,
Yeah.
and those are always tough. Because a dog's love, man, there's
Yeah.
nothing comparable to a dog's love. If we could love like dogs, man, we sure would
Oh
be
yeah. Yep.
a
It's the
better
same
world,
thing.
wouldn't
I
it?
don't think it's as, because people end up growing, but as like a young kid's love. Like I would say like a 3, 4 year old's love. It's just their parents are their superheroes, and there's nothing they
Yeah.
could or have done wrong. And that's how a dog sees you, but for their whole life. That's
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah. So let's see, what do we got next? The next one is mistakes are a great learning tool. In life, you're going to have losses, and myself, I've learned more from my losses than winning, and I think we kind of hit on that before. We continue to learn as we go, uh, and our attitude controls more than we think. So I think that one is a big one for me. My attitude hasn't always been the best, and I've learned, man, if it continues to be bad, you're not going to
yeah.
figure out what you need to figure out. And it's going to impact others a great deal too, especially, where we work, man, I got to try to be in a good mood, because if I'm not, it
Yeah.
tends to be contagious.
Yep.
And we're great at our job too. If somebody is in a bad mood, we call them out and make sure they know they're in a bad mood
Yeah.
and to get in a
Yep.
better mood. I think that helps a great
Yeah.
deal. Not for
And it's
everybody,
interesting
but yeah,
how it does spread, because you know for us, you're our boss, so it's like if something trickles down, that's pretty obvious that it will trickle down. But I've seen it in every way where, other people say on my shift, or other, are having a bad day, or you see it, and it just seeps into everybody. And then all of a sudden it's quiet in the hangar and nobody's talking, and we're all just working miserably, and,
yeah, yeah,
it definitely seeps. And that's something I struggle with too. I get stuck in moods. I find it hard to. I don't want to call it force, but make my way out of it, especially when I need to be. Um,
Yeah.
but you know, one of the things one of the things I work on. Um, and I don't even want to call it putting on
Oh
a
yeah.
face because I think that's a little bit fake, but really seeing everything for what it is and saying that this thing and these people have nothing to do with what maybe it happened 20 minutes ago, or maybe they do, but that doesn't matter anymore. So let's move forward. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. And I've seen it before in our shop where a person comes in a bad mood, and 5-10 minutes
yep.
later it's a good mood, which is pretty
Yeah.
rare in life to have
Yep.
someone turn their mood around
Yeah.
that quick. Yeah, part of the joy and the brotherhood we
Yeah. That
have
happens to me quite a
working
bit.
there.
And sometimes, well, not as
Yeah.
much anymore, but early on, I remember, whatever, thinking this day sucks or whatever. I walk into work, and then 30 minutes later, I'm like playing guitar and laughing with Josh. And then I look back and I'm like, man, I'm supposed to be sad right now. Like I'm supposed to be mad. Like this happened earlier. And then I check myself like, don't force yourself into
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. It's kind of like when a little kid's
yeah,
mad and they want to stay mad,
yeah,
but they can't help it. Like, oh crap, I was supposed to be mad, and now look at me. I'm all
yep.
happy and stuff. I got to try to act mad again.
Exactly. I've caught myself in that paradox many, many times, but I've come
Yeah.
to appreciate it very much. I think like it's rare that you can go to work and have a better day for a lot of people.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Usually it's the opposite. Like, man, I'm
yeah,
having a bad day. Now I got to go to work. A lot of this is, and that goes back to some of like Dave and Cobra when they were going through some times. Like, all right, man, you need some time off. That's cool, but that's enough. Now you come back, work with us, dumbasses, and don't do much.
yeah.
You just got to come and be around us, and
Oh yeah,
that's it's some good medicine.
yep.
Yeah. All right. So the next one, love as much as you can and as many as you can. To me, uh, man, love is awesome. Giving and receiving. So I'm a while back. Jeanette, she had written a book, and I read it, and I said, "Hey, I read your book, finished it," and she said, "And then, well, what are you thankful for?" And as I thought about it, I thought about this. Uh, to me, in my life, since I can remember, and even right now, I have so many people I get to love. And it's awesome to have as many people as I do that I get to love. I'm very blessed. And also with that, I'm very blessed to have so many people that love me. Because, man, it's incredible what that can do to you. Every which way you get a phone call from your buddy that you haven't talked to in a
Mm,
month or so, and you're like, oh, nice. And all of these different friends, family, all of this, during a bad time, a loss of a family member, and then you really get together and see the love you have, which you wish you would have all the time, but a funeral really brings you together with and then everybody at the funeral says, man, we
yeah,
need to get together more often like this. And then the funeral saying, but the love is there. And even if you don't talk to family members as much as you want,
yep.
you still have it. So that's, I
I
guess,
think
number 7 for me, Ken.
I think that love is probably one of the strongest tools that anybody can use, because I mean, like we just talked about, it'll change other people's reaction or perception of you or a situation. And I've honestly like to apply Fred's point in his episode to this, which was, and I've been thinking about it a lot. This is probably, if you told me to think of one from his episode, this is what stuck, is that nothing is good or bad until you make it so. And that really, that's
Yeah.
been wormed in my head since he said those words. And yeah, it's, I mean, the same thing applies here. Is like, are you gonna, are you gonna make it so that you give and show this person love, most likely receive it and be an all around good person, or are you gonna make it a bad situation and maybe, you know, give them attitude or push them, blow them off, something like that. And you know, I just think everybody knows the obvious answer is if you put love into the world, it'll come back tenfold. And
Yeah. And just
mm-hmm.
like we were saying earlier, a dog's
Yep.
love, you know,
Yeah.
how incredible
Yeah.
that, and a young
And it's one of
kid's
the
love.
probably more
Yeah.
instant changes that you can make in your life. You know, I've never been a particularly negative person, but when I when I initially thought of this and said, okay, I'm gonna try and just put this out. You know, I'm not gonna have hard feelings for this person or whatever. Um, it comes right back at you pretty much instantly. You know, um, it's, yeah, I'd say one of the more powerful actions that you can do as far as emotions and stuff.
Yeah. And to go back, you know, to the Bible is faith, hope, and love are the greatest things he gave us. And the greatest is love. To me, how I see that, uh, the reason the love is the greatest is faith. You have faith. To me, when you go to heaven, your faith brought you there. So now you're there. So I guess you don't really need faith anymore in a sense because you're there. Hope. You have hope while you're here on earth, but what are your hopes? You know, for me, I hope to go to heaven. And if I'm in heaven,
Mm-hmm.
then I don't need that hope anymore. But the love will still be there. So the greatest is love because it's everlasting.
Yeah, I
Just
like that. It's
to
a really
add
good
on to that a
way
little
because I
bit.
wouldn't have framed it that way initially. Yeah,
Well, I don't know if it's supposed to be framed that way,
interpretation.
but that's
Yeah,
kind of how
yeah.
I see it,
No,
I
but I like that
guess.
because it's,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
if you have to
yeah,
find importance in any one of them, that that makes the most sense to me. I like that.
yeah. So yeah, that's well, that's seven. For eight, this is like just for me, get a good hoodie or listen to music, and that doesn't mean you have to get a hoodie or listen to music. It means find something that gives you comfort, something you have to go to for some peace. It could be anything. It could be like we were talking about that friend, that one friend, or those many friends, or that friend group. Whatever it is, especially when you're feeling down. You know, like we talked about earlier, when you need to talk and you don't want to talk,
Mm-hmm.
that's when you should go talk. And that's when you look for that. What gives you comfort in that? Uh, Josh knows this. And there's that song by
I don't
Rusted
think so.
Root. Do you On My Way? Oh. But anytime I hear that song, man, it just brightens me up. And it's not a particularly good song. It's good, but it's not like great if you listen to it. You'll recognize it if you hear it. But I think it's Send Me On
Oh,
My Way.
set me on my way.
I believe
That
that's
one.
the name of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, that one. But anytime that comes on, no matter what
Okay.
mood I'm in, it brightens it. And I usually can't be in a bad mood when I hear that song. So that's one of the go. And if I am in a really bad mood and I play that song and it doesn't fix it, I was like, okay, I really
Yeah.
need to get out of this mood I'm in. So that's it. To find something that gives you comfort, a comfortable hoodie, a good song, or many good songs. For you, what is some of the things that might give you
For
peace
me,
when you're
I
needing it?
was my go to um, is honestly it's kind of a backwards thing, and anybody who does this knows is I go play games. If I just want to space out, kind of turn my brain off, I play video games. But video games are
Okay.
also some of the things that will make me the maddest that I've been. Exactly, but it's a
But a
stupid
different mad.
game. But
Yeah.
at the same time, it's so. I think it's something to do with just turning my brain off and, you know, locked into this game. But
Yeah.
you know, I've had times where say that doesn't work or whatever. But honestly, you know, I'm looking at the spot and the dog here is that I was walk in here and lay on the hardwood and lay my head on. I'm fortunate that my dog is a very like emotionally aware dog. Anytime anybody's crying or in a bad mood, he's just in
Yeah.
your face, which is funny because he's not a particularly lovey dog,
Mm-hmm.
and not in that situation. Um, and yeah, anytime he senses that, I just
Yeah.
lay on the hardwood and I lay my head on his stomach or like his shoulder area, and we just lay there in silence. And I just look at him, pet him, and that's one of the
Yeah.
best calming things that I've ever experienced, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's that dog's love
Yep.
again.
Always there. He has
Yeah.
never not been
So
there.
awesome.
Anytime I lay on
Yeah.
the floor and look for that,
Yeah.
um, he's never, not around or like, oh no, get away from me. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
but
Oh yeah. Yeah. So that's it. Find something that gives you peace, whatever it may
hmm
be. I think everybody's got something, that they get comfort in, and just enjoy it for,
yeah,
to
and
get you
utilize
some
it.
peace
I think it's
when you,
wraps around to realizing that you're in
yeah.
a certain space. If you can't talk to somebody or you have and you're still dealing with it or whatever, utilize that thing and do it consciously. Don't just like me, I'll just hop on games. But if I'm in a bad mood, I'm like, okay, I'm consciously going to go do this thing and settle myself down.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's important to know do things with maybe conviction isn't the right word. Do things on purpose that have an outcome.
Yeah. 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 All right. And nine, and some of these a lot of people know, but it's putting it to action and into your thoughts. Be grateful for what you have.
Hmm.
That's very important to me. I have what I consider so much, you know, and going back to that, I have so many people that love me, and I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful for pretty much everything that I have and everything
Yeah,
I've been given. So
yeah. I find
yeah.
myself in the same. I'm very fortunate, especially comparatively. People I know or have grown up with, and um, I think you mean the same thing. You say things. It's like an extended family, people to talk to, good friends. I have multiple friend groups who I'd consider, some of my best friends. That they don't even know each other, and they're big separate groups. And I'm very fortunate for that. I have people and know people who don't have one, or they have one or two close friends, and that's it. And I have, maybe 20, plus. Um,
Yeah, yeah,
Things like that.
yeah,
People to love me, and I'm extremely
yeah,
grateful in a lot of different ways.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, that's nine. Any more on
I
nine, or
think
you
we're
want
going
to
to move
go to
on. Plus,
10?
I'm curious because I was confused about this one.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah. Okay. So when I was in college, where I went to college, I had an uncle who was 2 hours away, and so I would suppose once every 2 months we would meet halfway and have a meal together. And this uncle of mine, it's my mom's brother. He is older brother to my mom. But growing up, anytime we'd go to visit, him and I would always throw baseball back and forth, play catch, and also talk about baseball. He loves baseball. I love baseball. We talked a lot about baseball. So we talked a lot. And he also had trouble with alcohol too. And he and I talked a lot about that. And he was always real supportive of me when I did quit drinking and checking in and all of that. And so we had a lot of conversations. So when we would meet halfway and have a meal, I always enjoyed it. These meals would be the minimum 2 hours
Mm.
and maybe even 4 hours of just talking. So, eat a little bit and talk. And he always had this great knowledge. And I just loved talking to him and getting this knowledge. And I remember one particular time, he was just going. And I was like, man, this is just pure gold. And he kept going. And I was like, man, these are incredible life lessons. And it was almost like a great speech. And then for the conclusion, He just said this. He said, life. I don't know. And I was like, what? I said, no, after all of
He's
that,
unsure. Yeah.
this is what you end. And so I had an hour drive back and I was just thinking about that. I was like, man, life. I don't know. And to me, that was, it finally
Yeah.
figured it out. That is the answer. Like, life. I don't
Yeah.
know. We don't always know, and sometimes we don't have the answers. We
Yep.
really want them, but we're not going to get them. And so accepting that, hey, I don't know what's going on in life, where it's going to bring me, where I'm at right now, different things like that. But hey,
Yeah.
life,
That
I don't
feels
know.
like yeah,
So,
that feels like a
hey,
full
there's
circle
your
back to
answer.
what we talked about towards the beginning with my dad. It's like, you know, I don't know. And I know
Yeah,
that I don't know, and that's okay. Move on. And that's a hard thing to
yeah,
grasp or
yeah.
to like move forward on because it doesn't feel like an answer. Um, exactly.
Even
Yeah.
though it is the answer.
Yeah. And, depending on what,
Yeah,
what you believe in and whatnot, like I know you and I, um, that's how I chalk a lot of my life up to, or, what things happen or whatnot is, it's out of my hands
yeah,
and I'm, uh, I'm good with that. I'm good with following and just living with what I'm given. And, you know,
yeah.
yeah, no, I like that.
Yeah, trying to figure out, yeah, sometimes trying to figure that out will, man, it'll be really end up being negative
Mm-hmm.
because it might drive you crazy. And myself, as commandment one, following Jesus and think, man, God's got me. I know He's got me. I know this because I've been through so many experiences where I really shouldn't be here because of the choices that I've made. The only
Mm-hmm.
reason I am is God's got me. But then when I am wondering about life, it's like, man, I can't figure this out. What is going on? And maybe get mad at God or something. And like, yeah, He's still got me, but why am
Yeah.
I continuing to look for the answers? You know, it's not
Yeah.
my plan. It's His plan, and I just have to kind of follow that and know, hey, His will be done.
Yep.
Not mine.
Yep.
Even though I might fight it. But yeah, and so yeah, that going back to that when he said that, I thought that he just didn't know, and I'm like, man, how can you end this great dump of knowledge on me with life? I don't know. And then I just realized, it hit like a light bulb. Man, brilliant.
Yeah.
That is sheer
Yep.
brilliance. Yeah.
No, I
So
like
yeah,
that a
that's
lot.
my number
And
10.
it's, I guess, a similar thing, but, you know, um, I always tell my fiance whenever she's going through stuff or like, why does this happen? Or, oh, this part sucks or whatever is life happens. It's like, life's going to happen. That's my go-to always. But,
Yeah.
um, I like that. I like how, but with the whole story and everything makes it so much better and how kind of nonchalant and yeah, I don't know. Just you feel like he dropped this
Yeah, yeah,
whole,
yeah.
armory of bombs on you, and you're like, oh my goodness. And then,
Yeah, the secret to life
yeah,
is about to be unleashed right now. And then I'm waiting in anticipation.
the fuse
And then
never
boom.
never blew up
What?
of the bomb.
That's it? Uncle Stan, that's it? Yeah,
Oh man,
that's it. Like, all right. And I don't think I've ever told him that. I don't think I've ever told him that,
yeah, I was
which I probably should at some point.
that'd be a make for a
Yeah,
fun story, anyways. Well,
yeah.
and it might be one of those things where
Oh,
this
yeah.
happens to me all the time, where you bring it up, you remember that, remember the time, and you said this? No, not really, and then their whole story's out the window. You're like, oh, shoot, whatever.
Oh, yeah. Well, and that's another cool thing in life that I've realized from time to time is people will come to you and say, "Hey, man, you remember when you said this or said that? That made a big difference in my life." And I'll think, was that me? I said, "When was this?" And like one time he said, "Oh, when we were in Korea, you said this." I was like, "Oh, I didn't even know you were listening." Yeah, yeah, I was right behind you. It's like, "Oh, I
Yeah.
didn't know it
Well,
had
and
that kind of impact."
yeah,
So
it
that's
shows a lot
always
of the things that you
awesome.
may not think are
Yeah.
important will change people's lives. And I know it's happened
Yeah.
a ton to me, especially in this group, things that you've done, things that little actions that Cobra's done that I've, you know, admired and, you know, changed the way that I act or hold myself because of that, or the things that Dave says. And they're all little things that none of you probably remember,
Yeah.
but they're very vivid to me because, it was important. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It's
But
awesome.
yeah, no, this was a great list. I feel like each one was harder for the person kind of presenting because we've had this many in the past. So um, I said this in the last
Yeah.
episode. I'm still so shocked that there were so few repeats, and that each of us are, or each of you guys rather, are so close and so similar to me at face value, but so different down to the core. And all make, at the end of the day, all make
Yeah.
great men
It,
in different ways, following different rules. So it's interesting.
yeah. And it
Yeah.
makes for such a stronger group that we have because we're so tight, and then we can say we disagree with that or we agree with that, and
Yeah.
there's like no judgment. Yeah. There's laughter, and there's judging the situation more
Yeah.
so
Or
than
friendly name
judging the
calling.
person. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
this was great.
Yeah.
You ready to wrap up? All right. Well,
Yes, sir. Yeah. Well, thank you, Cam. And man, great idea on this whole series. And thank you
oh
for
yeah.
letting me wrap it
No,
up.
but thank you.
You know,
You guys definitely put had the weight on your shoulders for as far as the work was done. I made a time, pressed record, and listened. So thank you, guys. Thank you.
yeah. Are you
I
gonna
may.
do one yourself then?
I have to see. Uh, maybe that'll be a little bit later on to put things into practice and stuff like that, because I've definitely learned a lot through this process. But
Very
yeah,
good.
so yeah, thank you again. This one was great. I enjoyed this a lot. Um, yeah, make sure you guys
All right, Cam.
subscribe, like, all that good stuff. Always, most importantly, share. This may come across somebody's feed that needs one of these topics, or relates to me or Brandon or whatever it may be, and help them out. So it may be the thing that you do that you don't remember in 10 years, and they're like, remember when you shared that video that changed my life? But
Oh,
anyways,
nice.
yeah, thank you guys
Yeah.
for watching, and thank you, Brandon, again. See y'all later.